In a heart-stopping moment, a street girl heroically saves a business tycoon from an oncoming train, sustaining injuries herself. As he rushes to her side, gratitude spills from his lips. "What can I do for you?" She makes an unexpected request, to be treated like his daughter for just one day at his home. But the next morning, she awakens to a shocking twist that could change her life forever. In the bustling heart of New York City, where the noise of honking cars and the chatter of busy pedestrians filled the air, 11-year-old Lena Carter navigated the crowded streets with a mix of caution and determination. Her tousled hair and worn-out sneakers told a story of resilience. She had grown up on these streets, always searching for her next meal and a safe place to sleep. Today, like many others, her stomach growled painfully as she rummaged through a trash can behind a popular cafe, hoping to find anything edible. As she sifted through the refuse, she couldn't help but glance up occasionally at the people passing by. They were lost in their own worlds, most of them unaware of the struggles happening just a few feet away. Lena watched with a mix of envy and curiosity. If only she could have a taste of the life they lived, one where food was guaranteed and safety was not a daily concern. "Come on, just a bit of bread, please," Lena muttered to herself, her fingers sifting through the remnants of someone else's lunch. Suddenly, a commotion near the subway entrance caught her attention. A tall man in a tailored suit, James Lowell, was engrossed in a heated phone conversation, completely oblivious to his surroundings. "No, I need those numbers today. I can't lose this deal." James's voice was firm and commanding, but there was an edge of anxiety that crept through his words. He stepped back from the curb, distracted and agitated, still focused on the phone. Lena could see the stress etched on his face, and for a moment, she felt a pang of sympathy. But just as she was about to turn back to her search, Lena's instincts kicked in. She noticed the light change to red and heard the distant rumble of a subway train approaching. "Hey, watch out," she yelled, her voice barely rising above the cacophony of the city. James, still oblivious, stepped backward onto the tracks. A look of shock plastered on his face as he realized his mistake. Without thinking, Lena sprang into action. She raced towards him, heart pounding in her chest. "Get away," she shouted as she hurled herself at him, shoving him aside just as the train roared into the station. The impact knocked both of them to the ground. Lena landed hard, pain shooting through her arm, but she barely noticed. James, wide-eyed and breathless, looked at the girl who had just saved his life. "What just happened?" he gasped, still trying to process the near miss. "You were about to get hit," Lena replied, struggling to stand. She could feel a sharp ache in her arm and a bruise starting to form where she had landed. But her concern was not for herself. "You need to be more careful, sir." James blinked, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. The subway train screeched to a halt, and the doors slid open, releasing a wave of commuters. Some paused to look at the commotion, while others rushed past, eager to board the train. "Are you okay?" James finally asked, his voice filled with genuine concern as he looked at the scrappy girl before him. Just a bit bruised," Lena said, brushing off her jeans, trying to maintain a brave facade. "But you're fine now, thanks to you," James replied, gratitude filling his voice. "I don't even know your name." "Lena Carter," she said, still catching her breath. "James Lowell," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "I can't believe you just saved my life." Lena hesitated for a moment, then shook his hand. "It was nothing, just doing what I had to." James studied her, a mixture of admiration and disbelief in his eyes. Here was a child who had risked everything for a stranger. "I owe you," he said earnestly. "Let me do something for you." "Anything." Lena looked up at him, her heart racing. Most people she encountered on the streets rarely offered help, let alone a wealthy businessman like James Lowell. "I don't need money or anything," she said, feeling a lump form in her throat. "But maybe you could pretend to be my dad for a day?" James was taken aback. "What do you mean?" I just want to know what it feels like to have a dad. Even if it's just for a little while," she confessed, her eyes downcast. I know it's a lot to ask. A silence hung between them as James processed her request. It was a lot, but something about her sincerity tugged at his heart. He remembered the emptiness in his life since the disappearance of his wife, Diana. Here was this brave girl, yearning for something he had taken for granted. Okay, James finally said, determination in his voice. Let's do it. Just for a day. Lena's face lit up with a smile that warmed his heart. Really? You mean it? Of course, he replied, returning her smile. How about we grab some food first? I owe you that much. Sounds good, Lena exclaimed, suddenly feeling lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. As they walked towards a nearby diner, Lena felt a flutter of hope inside her. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't alone. In that moment, both Lena and James began to see the possibility of a different life. One filled with connection, compassion, and perhaps even a touch of family. Little did they know, this day would change their lives forever, setting off a series of events that neither could foresee. As they entered the diner, laughter and warmth enveloped them, and for the first time, Lena felt like she belonged. However, an unexpected challenge lurked just around the corner, waiting to disrupt their newfound bond. The cozy diner was bustling with activity, filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling bacon. Lena Carter followed James Lowell to a booth in the back, her heart racing with excitement. This wasn't just any meal. It was a chance to experience a normal day, one that felt worlds away from her life on the streets. As they settled into the booth, Lena couldn't help but glance around, taking in the colorful decor and the laughter of families enjoying their breakfasts. I can't believe I'm actually sitting here, she said, her eyes wide. This place is amazing. James chuckled, the tension from the near accident fading. You like it? It's one of my favorite spots in the city. He scanned the menu briefly, then looked up at Lena. What do you want? Pancakes, she replied immediately, her voice bright with enthusiasm. With syrup, and maybe some bacon. Pancakes and bacon it is, James smiled, waving over a waitress. 2 orders of pancakes, a side of bacon, and a coffee for me, please. Coming right up, the waitress replied cheerfully before heading off to the kitchen. Thanks, Lena said, her heart swelling with gratitude. You really didn't have to do this. James leaned back in his seat, studying Lena's face. After you saved my life, I think it's the least I can do, he said warmly. But I'm curious. What's it like living on the streets? Lena paused, her smile faltering for a moment. It's tough. Most days, I'm just trying to find food. And sometimes I worry about finding a safe place to sleep. James listened intently, his heart aching for the girl sitting across from him. Do you have anyone looking out for you? A family or friends? No, Lena admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Just me. But I'm okay. I've learned how to take care of myself. The waitress returned with their plates, placing the steaming pancakes and crispy bacon in front of them. Lena's eyes lit up as she took in the sight, her stomach growling in anticipation. Wow! This looks delicious, she exclaimed, diving into her food. She savored each bite, feeling the warmth and comfort of a proper meal fill her. James watched her, a sense of satisfaction swelling in his chest. In this moment, he felt a flicker of hope, a chance to build a connection that could change both their lives. So, what do you want to do today? He asked, eager to keep the momentum going. Can we go to Central Park? I've heard so many things about it, Lena said between mouthfuls, her eyes shining with excitement. Absolutely, James agreed, feeling a sense of adventure himself. After we finish here, we can head there. As they wrapped up their meal, Lena felt a warmth growing in her heart. She had never expected to spend a day like this. A day filled with laughter, food, and the company of someone who cared. Felt almost surreal. After paying the bill, they left the diner and stepped out into the sunlit streets of New York City. James led the way, guiding Lena through the bustling crowds. As they walked, he noticed how she soaked in every detail. The street performers, the bright storefronts, and the laughter of children playing nearby. Finally, they reached Central Park, Lena gasped, taking in the lush greenery and the colorful flowers that bloomed in every corner. "It's beautiful," she exclaimed, her eyes wide as she ran ahead to explore. James smiled, watching her. "It really is. Let's go check out the playground over there," he suggested, pointing to a nearby area filled with laughing children. Lena dashed toward the playground, her laughter ringing in the air like music. For a brief moment, she felt like a normal kid, free and carefree. James joined her, pushing her on the swings and sharing in her joy. However, the day took a sudden turn when James noticed a familiar face in the distance. Linda Burke, the social worker he had encountered the previous week. His heart sank. He knew she was here to check on Lena. "Lena," he called out, a hint of urgency in his voice. She paused, looking back at him with a puzzled expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, her smile fading. James gestured towards Linda, who was now approaching them, clipboard in hand. "We might have a problem," he said quietly. Lena's eyes widened in alarm. "What do you mean?" Before James could respond, Linda reached them, her expression serious. "Mr. Lowell, I need to speak with you about Lena," she said, her tone firm. Lena looked between them, fear creeping into her heart. "What's going to happen?" James felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He knew this moment could change everything. "Let's just talk for a moment," he said, trying to reassure Lena with a nod. As Linda began to explain the legal challenges surrounding Lena's situation, James felt a deep sense of dread. He had just begun to build a connection with Lena, and now it felt like everything was about to slip away. Lena stood nearby, anxiety brewing within her. The day that had started with so much promise now hung in the balance, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the life she had just glimpsed was about to be taken from her once again. As Lena and James sped away from Central Park, the chaotic events of the day weighed heavily on both of them. Lena could feel the thrill of escape coursing through her veins, but fear still lurked at the edges of her mind. What would happen next? Would Linda and the millstones come after them? James focused on the road ahead, his grip on the steering wheel tight. "We need to find a safe place to talk," he said, glancing at Lena. "Somewhere we can figure out our next steps without anyone interrupting." "Like where?" Lena asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I have a friend, Mia, who runs a small cafe not far from here. She can help us," James replied, determination evident in his tone. "Is it safe?" Lena questioned, glancing back nervously, half expecting to see the millstones car following them. "It will be," James assured her. "Mia knows me well. She'll keep our secret." Lena nodded, trying to steady her racing heart. A few minutes later, they arrived at a quaint little cafe nestled on a quiet street. James parked the car and turned to Lena, a reassuring smile on his face. "Stick close to me. Okay?" "Okay," Lena replied, though doubt still flickered in her mind. They entered the cafe, and the familiar aroma of fresh coffee and pastries enveloped them. Mia, a warm-hearted woman in her 40s with curly brown hair and a welcoming smile, stood behind the counter. "James, it's good to see you," she exclaimed, her eyes widening when she noticed Lena. "Who's this?" "This is Lena," James introduced, glancing around the cafe to ensure no one was eavesdropping. "I need your help." Mia's expression shifted to concern. "What happened? Is everything all right?" James lowered his voice, leading her away from the counter. "Lena saved my life today, but now we're in a bit of trouble." "Trouble?" Mia asked, raising an eyebrow. "Long story short," James continued, "she's in danger of being taken away by a couple who want to adopt her, but she doesn't want to go with them." Mia's face softened as she looked at Lena. "Oh, sweetie, I understand. You're safe here. Can we stay for a while?" Lena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," Mia replied. "Why don't you two grab a seat, and I'll bring you some hot chocolate?" Lena felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Thank you," she said, her voice cracking slightly with emotion. They found a quiet corner table and settled in, the warmth of the cafe enveloping them like a comforting blanket. James looked at Lena, concern etched across his face. "Are you okay? I know today has been overwhelming." "I'm fine. Just scared," Lena admitted, her voice trembling. "What if they come for me?" "We'll figure it out," James said, his tone reassuring. "I'm not going to let them take you. We just need to think of a plan." As they waited for Mia to return, Lena thought about everything that had happened since their first meeting. She felt a bond forming between them, one that was deeper than anything she had experienced before. James was no longer just a wealthy businessman. He was someone who cared, someone who was willing to fight for her. Mia soon returned with 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate topped with whipped cream. "Here you go," she said, setting the drinks down. "What's the plan?" James took a deep breath. "First, we need to gather more information about the millstones. They seem off, and I want to know why they're so interested in Lena." "Good idea," Mia said, nodding. "I can help you with that. I have connections in the neighborhood and know a few people who might have seen them." "Thank you, Mia," James said gratefully. They spent the next hour brainstorming, sipping their hot chocolates, and mapping out a plan. Lena felt more at ease as she listened to James and Mia discuss possible strategies. For the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. But as they chatted, Lena couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching her. When she glanced out the cafe window, her stomach dropped. She spotted Linda Burke and the millstones across the street, scanning the area. Panic surged through her. "They're here," Lena hissed, her eyes wide with fear. "What do we do?" James quickly stood up, his protective instincts kicking in. "Stay close to me. We need to move now." Mia's expression turned serious. "Follow me. I know a back exit." They hurried towards the kitchen, Lena's heart pounding as they slipped out the back door. James kept a steady hand on her shoulder, guiding her through a narrow alley behind the cafe. "Stay quiet," he instructed as they moved quickly, adrenaline fueling their steps. Lena's mind raced. Would they really escape? Could they outrun those who wanted to take her away? She felt James's presence beside her, his unwavering strength, and it gave her the courage to keep going. As they reached the end of the alley, James paused, peeking around the corner. "Looks clear," he said, his eyes scanning the street. "Let's go." But just as they stepped into the light, Lena felt a cold chill wash over her. The millstones and Linda were closer than they thought, and time was running out. James led Lena down the bustling New York street, his senses on high alert. They needed to find a place to hide, somewhere the millstones and Linda Burke wouldn't think to look. Lena kept close, her heart pounding as they weaved through pedestrians and storefronts. "We can't let them catch us," James whispered urgently. "We need to think fast." "Where do we go?" Lena asked, glancing back nervously. "What if they see us?" "There's a subway station nearby," James replied, scanning their surroundings. "If we can get underground, we might be able to lose them." Lena nodded, trusting him instinctively. Together, they dashed toward the station, their hearts racing. They descended the stairs, the noise of the city fading as they entered the cool, dimly lit tunnels. James hurried to the ticket booth, buying 2 one-way tickets while keeping an eye out for any sign of their pursuers. "Stay close," he reminded Lena, his voice low but firm. As they moved through the station, Lena felt a mix of excitement and fear. The subway system was vast, and for the first time, she felt the thrill of adventure mixed with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. They boarded a train just as the doors slid shut, the rush of wind signaling their departure. Lena took a seat, her eyes darting around. James sat next to her, his face tense. "We'll get off at the next stop and figure out our next move," he said. As the train rattled through the tunnels, Lena tried to calm her racing heart. She could see the worry etched on James's face. "Do you think they'll follow us?" she whispered. "I hope not," James replied, glancing at the window, deep in thought. "But we can't take any chances. We need to get a safe distance away." When the train finally stopped, they hurried off, stepping into a less crowded area of the city. "Let's find a place to talk," James suggested, leading Lena toward a small park nearby. Once seated on a bench, James took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. "Okay, we need a plan," he said, his voice steadying. "We have to keep you safe from the millstones and Linda. I'll hire a lawyer and get everything sorted out." Lena nodded, her anxiety slowly ebbing. But what if they try to take me before that happens? James looked at her, his expression serious. I won't let that happen. I'll fight for you, Lena. Promise. As they spoke, Lena felt a flicker of hope ignite in her chest. She had never had someone truly stand up for her before. It was a powerful feeling, like she finally had a chance. Just then, Lena noticed a familiar figure approaching in the distance. James, it's her, she gasped, recognizing Linda Burke. Stay calm, James whispered, glancing around for an escape route. We'll have to play this carefully. Linda reached them, a mix of concern and authority in her voice. Lena, there you are. You need to come with me. This isn't safe for you. No, Lena replied, standing up defiantly. I don't want to go with you. James moved to stand protectively in front of her. Lena has made her choice, he stated firmly. And I'm here to support her decision. Linda crossed her arms, frustration evident on her face. You're not in a position to make that choice, James. Lena needs stability, and I can provide that. I think she deserves the chance to be with someone who cares about her. James countered, his voice unwavering. Not someone who sees her as just a number on a paper. Lena felt a surge of courage. I'm not just a number. I'm a person, and I choose James. The tension hung thick in the air, and for a moment, it felt like time stood still. Linda's expression softened slightly, perhaps realizing the bond that had formed between the two. James, she said, her tone less combative, you know the law is complicated. There are processes to follow. I'm willing to fight for her, James replied, determination shining in his eyes. I'll hire a lawyer and do whatever it takes. Lena looked up at James, feeling a warmth spread through her. This man had become her protector, her ally. The fear that had consumed her started to fade, replaced by a sense of belonging she had longed for. Linda sighed, contemplating the situation. I'll need to check in with my superiors, she said reluctantly. But for now, I can allow you a little time. Thank you, James said, relief washing over him. As Linda walked away, Lena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. You really mean it? You'll fight for me? Absolutely, James replied, a smile breaking through his earlier tension. You're not alone anymore, Lena. We're in this together. Lena's heart soared as she realized that, for the first time in her life, she had someone who truly cared. The two of them would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by the bond they had forged through courage and compassion. As they sat on the bench, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park. Lena felt hopeful about the future, one where she was not just a survivor but a cherished member of a family she had always dreamed of having.